This is Chef Ris. She's a prolific chef, and she's been nice enough to entertain an employee she hired for charity reasons, of course, if you ever worked with them. Hi, Chef. Thanks for having me.
Hi, Joel. Nice to be with you.
So let me just get this started off by let me ask you about food, because one of the things I noticed working at your restaurant is your food is by far beyond the pale for what most people can do. Mm-hmm. So what do you think is that extra thing that makes your food from, my crappy burger I make at home to, this?
That's a good question. My mother was a great cook. She claims that her Aunt Rose was a really good cook. That's where she thinks I got my talent, but she was a great cook. She cooked for 9 of us. 3 hot meals a day. But I think, cooking is, you're born, it's a talent. It's like playing guitar, musical talent, or engineering, mathematical talent. I really, believe that's true. You're born with it. So I think you have a certain amount, and I was a pre-med student at one point, but I never really studied the physiology of the palate, of the tongue, and not always wanted to, not like it's something that, I can't pick up a book, and the sense of smell and the sense of taste is also much part of what we do. But I think it's just a talent that I was born with. I was fortunate enough, in all of my travels and adventures in my youth, I should say. I didn't really know I was headed to this path, but then I landed in Paris at a cooking school, and there you have it. And following that, I got a job, very, very, very fortunate to get a job with Bob Kincaid, who was an amazing cook. And he always said to me that I was the finest palate he'd ever met. So I followed him around forever because of that comment. But he taught me so many things of how to combine flavors and how to make things work, but it's true. You're right. When you make a burger, I make a burger, it's going to come out differently. So I think it's the conversation that you have with food that makes a difference. I think it's the paying attention to what the food is doing, how you're cooking it, seasoning it. It's remembering how it tasted this one time, so when you make it the next time, you don't change it, or you change it a lot, or just do different things with it. So it's all paying attention to it. But I think innately it's your palate, it's who you are.
I heard that all great chefs, they always take out one ingredient from the recipe just so no one can ever really...
I don't know about that. Not purposefully,
Right.
That's for sure.
All right, so this is a question I always ask people at the bar, and this is a serious question. You're on death row.
Yeah.
You have one final meal. What is it?
Oh, cheeseburger and a gin. American cheese. Yeah. I mean, I love burgers, always have. I think so. I think it's easy. It's when I'm sitting at a bar, that's, if I go to relax, I'll go and have a cheeseburger, and I'll treat myself to a cheeseburger. So it will be a great treat to have a delicious cheeseburger and a nice big old fat glass of gin, as you well know. I like. That's right.
That's good.
Tanqueray gin.
All right, so let's talk about DC Central Kitchen, because the main point of this was I'm trying to get our viewers at home to buy into this, and then to try and support local nonprofits.
Right, that's just wonderful, Joel. Yeah. I mean, I am behind you 1,000,000%.
And that goes me, especially because putting me on here and doing all this stuff, especially I know you do not have lots of time, and
this is great. This is time very well spent.
So DC Central Kitchen, what can you tell us about it? Just starting off for someone who doesn't know anything about it at all.
Oh my God. Robert Egger, a gentleman by the name of Robert Egger, started DC Central Kitchen. He was a club guy, ran clubs, started DC Central Kitchen. I can't tell you his whole story, you have to look it up, but in 35 years, so what does that make? 1989. I arrived in DC with Bob Kincaid from Nantucket in 1987. I do have to, say one thing, that Bob was just a very generous, wonderful man. We used to have a lot, we call them jailbirds, but we used to have a lot of guys in rehab doing our dishes. And so we're connected immediately when we came into town with that world. And again, coming from, pristine Nantucket. So we're city people immediately. Loved those guys. We all loved those guys. They were awesome. And a couple of years later, it started. Robert Egger started coming around with a truck, and he was collecting food that he could refab into meals for the homeless people on the street. And so we gave him all of our otto romaine leaves, because we just used romaine hearts, and gave him bread and gave him whatever we could, leftover staff meal. You just gave him, running a restaurant, his profits aren't huge, and we gave him whatever we could. I don't know if it was every day, could have been 2 or 3 times a week, have no idea, no recall. But it started, and it's we just celebrated his 35th anniversary. Robert is now in Los Angeles, and Mike Curtin has taken over the reins. And they have made it into this place. They were feeding the homeless and feeding the hungry, and hungry is never going to go away. They started a culinary program for people who were incarcerated and were in rehab and trying to make a new life for themselves. And now they create jobs, is what they do. All those years of thousands and thousands of meals. I sat on the board for many years when I was not working. When I left 1789, before I opened Ris, I went every week and cooked and collected all the cans, organized all the canned goods and stuff, and I'd make my meal for next week, and every Thursday I would go, and I always felt better when I left than when I arrived, always, as one does when one does good things, as I'm sure you do. And I made these great meals, like 50 gallons of something, rice and bean salad, something with protein, something with vegetables, and so many great vegetables. They'd gleaned all the markets, all the farms, I should say. And they just you'd open up a freezer, open a refrigerator, and there's all these carrots and these squash and this, volunteers everywhere, prepping vegetables and doing great things. And they were on 2nd and East Street. And now they've just celebrated, and I could be wrong, a year and a half of being in their new place down by the Point, I think it's called, the new neighborhood. And they have this amazing complex. They feed 16,000 meals a day. They're working. They have every 16 weeks they have a new class of graduates, and then they find them jobs, and finding them jobs means they're working with about 20 or 30 schools now. So they cook food for 20 or 30 DC public schools. They cook, they feed people. They feed lots of different institutions. They feed elderly people. They feed sick people. They feed homeless people. It's an amazing operation. You have to go and volunteer before you leave town. Yeah. You should really make that arrangement, because I'm just awestruck every time I go. And then recently I had, COVID, everything else, life, hell, just no business, pre-COVID, all of that. I was just out of circulation. And just this year that I started getting back into circulation, and we started doing the dinners, the graduation dinners for them, but it's been bringing me back to DC Central Kitchen. And I every time I go in and I go to the graduations, I fall apart. It's just so inspirational and so wonderful, and these people are so proud of what they've done, and they should be. So it's unbelievable organization. The respect, the love, the care that these people get from the people who run DC Central Kitchen is unbelievable. And then it's all run by themselves. I don't know the numbers, but maybe 75-80% of the workers all came through the program. Awesome place.
What do you think they need the most when it comes to support for the community? You think it's just people reaching out to them saying, "Hey, I need a cook right now," or?
Yeah, I think so. I think placing people is very, very important. Giving them jobs. They have jobs and they have security. They have insurance. They get all of that working with the kitchen. I think a lot of people I'm sure, I don't know, but I'm sure there are people who would like to get out working in restaurants and getting a job, so yeah, I think that being in touch with DC Central Kitchen and finding out from them directly, what do you need, who's graduating, taking someone, I used to have lots of DC Central Kitchen employees. I haven't had any in a while, but it's something that we all should do.
50-gallon drums. So how do you How do you, it doesn't like change like the ratio or something when you're
Oh
going
no
up
no
that big?
no!
It's like
I always
cinnamon doesn't
you
marinate as well when
I
you...
always used to brag. I was a big time sausage maker. There's my Uncle Rainey's sausage stuffer that long story, but just got refinished. You know, it was
Yeah.
all rusty, hanging out in my garage for years, and but I used to make sausage in these big Lexans, and I always swore that I could make 2 pounds of sausage or a ton of sausage, and it would be seasoned properly. And that's just all from doing it over and over again. It's layering that salt on there and knowing, it's a teaspoon per pound of meat.
Yeah.
If you ever want to make sausage or meatloaf or anything like that.
per pound.
Yep. And but when you're doing it in those big batches, you're just putting that layer of salt, and it's just innate.
So you don't even worry about it. It's like, that's what it's supposed to look like,
no,
right?
you just, you're paying attention. As I said earlier, you're paying attention. You know exactly what you do, and you know that you had a deep Lexan, was this deep, and you know how much salt you put on it just by that layering effect. And so you remember that, you committed it to memory, and so you just use that same tool again. But I did brag about that. I could do 2 pounds or a ton of sausage, and I could season it right. So just from doing it a million times.
Experience, right?
Huh?
Experience,
That's
right?
right, exactly.
Well, let's talk about experience too, because one of the things that you're always acclaimed of is being such a wonderful neighbor, and being a DC institution for years.
Uh-huh.
So we just covered the DC Central Kitchen, but you're also a part of tons of other nonprofits. I mean, you've been on boards for many other things.
Yep.
What other, if you could talk to the citizens of DC and say, hey, obviously DC Central Kitchen, but are there any other pressing nonprofits or things that you think that really could use attention, or?
Well, I think so. I mean, there's Martha's Table. There's lots of community groups that feed women, that just feed the homeless. Let me think now on nonprofit. The villages are awesome. So, and these are villages that may be people of means, maybe people of not of means. In that same village, in that same footprint who live. So I work with the Foggy Bottom West End Village, and I work quite a bit with the DuPont Circle Village. I haven't done anything recently, but just different things, different ways of making money. They'll call and we'll do a salon, and I'll talk about about life in the restaurant lane and things like that. So just lots of different things. I sit on the board and help out whenever I can at the restaurant, which is my new plan of action, and not to take away from the different charities, but my new plan of action is really to do as many things as I can at the restaurant, not to take me away from the restaurant, because my time is so limited. But I wouldn't say Martha's Table, the Foggy Bottom, not just the villages in general. I don't know how many there are, but there are quite a few in the city, and they are all over the country, and they allow people it's a volunteer service. It allows people to, older people, to be able to live in place. And so there's volunteers to help them, take them to the doctors, do shopping for them, help them out in their home. Not to be isolationists, to have events. They have a lot of events. They have, happy hour, and they have birthday parties and lunches. So all kinds of things like that. And that's just great for the elderly community.
Didn't you start delivering the food you got from the farmers market during COVID to the village? Was that one of the things?
To the village, and
make sure they got good.
Yep, and the farmers market I deliver every day is on our to-go menu, so that people who can't go to the market, I'll deliver to them. Fresh market produce I go and pick up every Saturday. There is Food and Friends, which used to be was an organization set up for AIDS many years ago. And now it's for the elderly, for anyone who is sick. So there are a lot, all kinds of organizations. I work with the Girl Scouts, not necessarily a nonprofit, but the Girl Scouts is a nonprofit. It's a different animal, I worked with Farmers Market, so Fresh Farm Markets. I was on their board with the Smith's American History of the Smithsonian Museum of American History. Again, a nonprofit, but I don't know if that's in your bailiwick, but they need funds, like everybody else, So those are some Girl Scouts. I said those are some of the organizations that I work with.
And then and I think I saw in your bio that you were one of the first people, or you were one of the army of chefs that brought farm to table and, seat to table to Washington.
Yeah, I want to say, I mean, I've been here since 1987. Again, worked with Bob Kincaid. Again, Mark Toigo, I still buy produce from, stone fruits mostly, and apples and pears, mostly fruit. He had a big tomato farm, however, too. Buy all my corn, all my melons from him. He used to pull up, no, wrong. There was this couple, what is their name? Barbara and I forget what their names were. This was, 37 years ago. They used to pull up in their truck, and and that's how, it was no farmers market, so that's how they would come. They'd pull up to the restaurants, pull up in their truck, and you get on top of the truck and you say, okay, I want some of that, some of that, some of that. It was awfully fun.
Yeah.
And then they left, moved to Pennsylvania, and so they introduced me to Mark Toigo, and Mark and I have been best of friends ever since. So just a couple of years later, so that I've been doing business with him forever.
That's where the apple crustadas come from?
The apple crustadas come from, exactly. And pretty soon the sour cherry crustadas. Strawberry crustadas come from the great Ochoa family. They are from Virginia, and they are a beautiful family, mother and father, and their beautiful daughters, and they have sons stay on the farm. So I just really know the girls, and they're awesome. Listen, I buy practically all of my produce from them.
But what do you think DC itself needs the most? I mean, because the goal of my first goal is essentially, because obviously I want to help the world, but before I help the world, you have to go to the country. Before you help the country, you have to help a city, right? So my main goal right now is just trying to get DC to help itself and to get all the people who are, we're all pretty much on the same page. Not really, but with that being said, 90% of everything we want is the same, you know?
Yeah.
But, so it's like, for example, when I talk to people, I narrow down to 3 things. I said, everyone pretty much agrees that homeless is the problem and these people need to be helped. Okay. Everyone believes crime is rampant and we need to do something to get the streets under control. And the last thing is that the society is not being good to kids right now. It's just, it's not,
kids need help.
They're growing up and
they need help. They've been through a really rough time,
from COVID and everything else. And then all the politics of the day.
They don't know where to be, they don't know where to hang, they don't know how to be, they don't know their parents both work, and everybody's struggling, and so when everybody's struggling, they have a difficult time seeing through that,
and one of my biggest challenges for this project is, it's not that no one, everyone knows that these problems, but a lot of people just don't believe they can never be solved. It's like one of those things where before you can even get someone to buy into the system or try to make a difference, they have to believe that there's a difference that could be made, and most of these people love to make that difference. If you gave them the chance to be a hero, they would jump at it, but they just don't. We're in this mindset where everyone's just so negative nowadays that So my 2 main missions essentially is to make people believe that we can fix these problems in the world and good things can happen.
Our share. Yep.
And then the second thing is also, yes. So once you get people believing that something could happen, then you have to get people to do their part. And the idea is, if we all do our part together, which is the bare minimum. So it's like, for example, I know especially me talking, and I'm just a guy off the street. I'm just a normal person. I don't know any, but trying to get a person to buy in and actually decide to get on the website and vote once a month, to pay the dollar, or to do that stuff, so obviously my first job is to make it so that people, it's dynamic enough that people buy in, but that's the one thing. But people like you do give me hope, because if you just talk to, I remember we were at the Rammies, and that bartender of the year, he was just delighted that you were there, and I felt so bad for the guy, because Chef gets catered off stage, right, to take pictures of all the people, and he's just out there, and he just was on cloud 9 that you were there, and he just, I knew Chef, and she did this for me. Everyone knows you're a wonderful person, right, left, and center. They all come to your restaurant and love it. So, it's one of the reasons why, and I'm so glad you're first person I ever interviewed, because you are exactly what, you don't even need to be part of this website. You've done enough. And I know you want to do more.
Yeah, I will be, because I haven't even signed up yet, but I will.
But with that being said, it's
What-
like, you know,
What needs more is your ask, you know, and I think that you're absolutely spot on about the kids. You know, I worked for Hospitality High School. I was on the board there when it existed. And, you know, interviewed all those kids for scholarships and all of that stuff. And it was just pretty, you know, pretty darn amazing. And again, very extremely satisfying. But I think the kids need help. You know, Georgetown University is another program, and maybe they don't need your money, but still, these are all things to know. You know, they have great education, great classes at the prison. You know, and I did a couple of classes there with a good friend of mine who was running those classes. You know, and just the conversation. You know, just the inspiration to get them feeling good about themselves and up and out. And there's just, you know, I'm assuming a good man like you were blessed. I was certainly blessed with beautiful parents.
yes.
And we have to give back, and that's my line. I just sent it to my family yesterday, you know, saying with my parents' 79th anniversary, they both passed away. I said, we're so lucky to have landed in their house. And just think of all the people who weren't so lucky. And if there's anything that we can do to share our good fortune with them, it's our responsibility to do so. That's a message I sent to my family yesterday. So I believe all that stuff, you know.
Amen.
You know, and that's how it should be for all of us. And as you said, if we can do it together. So I think students is a great way to go. I think that's wonderful. You know, summer programs, just things like that. Set up a program yourself, a scholarship yourself. Help people, help them find their way through college. You know, Wednesday was Ris Lacoste Day, and Dot, who's an associate of ours. She's our outreach person, and she got this, you know, the mayor's assistant, newly appointed deputy mayor of downtown revitalization. So say, okay, what are we going to do with that? You know, so we invited Doug Duncan, who runs Leadership Greater Washington, and that's a group of 60 adults from all walks of, you know, from business, from government, and from nonprofits. So 60 people per class. I was a class of 2017. So that would be a great place too, and a great source, you know, learning about our city and doing all good things, as many good things as we can for our city. It's a year-long program that's really fabulous. Great networking for professionals.
And can you just reiterate, what was that called?
Leadership Greater Washington.
Leadership Greater Washington?
Yep. And so he was there, you know, Sean Townsend was there, who's the head of Restaurant Association Metropolitan Washington, and they can be of great help too. He's the one who, you know, got me the proclamation from the mayor for Ris Lacoste Day. But Makia was there, she's from DC Central Kitchen, and Jonathan, and Dot may have mentioned him to you, Jonathan, who runs On the Stove, who's trying to feed the firemen, you know, get them healthy, feed them well, and do that. So we haven't done anything with them yet, but we will be partnering with them and doing some things. So that's a great option too. Also really good friends, and Dot's sister herself, but I have good friends again from Leadership Greater Washington who were with the not American Red Cross. Gail McGovern lives upstairs. She's American Red Cross from Catholic Charities. And so there's a lot of that work that needs to get done too, with all the refugees and finding people homes and all of that. So, you know, there's so much we can do, so many things, you know, and it's exciting to think of all of them, you know. So if I were you, I'd just be so excited about your program.
Especially all the stuff we can do together. So let's start on the end on a fun note.
Okay.
Right? So you have been in this town forever, and you have cooked for presidents, you've cooked for dignitaries, you've cooked for every sort of, you have to have some sort of cool story or fun story. You know, what was like the craziest, or you don't even have to tell us tell us the craziest night. I'm talking about like stuff's flying off the walls, everyone's running around like a chicken.
All happened,
like the, you know, you told me just one of the, if just take a moment, or, you know, and just think about like the coolest story from all your years of just being this prolific chef in the nation's capital, in the world's capital, really.
Well, I have I have a lot.
Yeah.
So, but I'll give you a couple.
Sure.
One of them I was, I guess, leaving Bob Kincaid after 13 years. So I started coming back from Paris in '82, fall of '82. In the spring of '85, we went to Nantucket. And then in the winter of '87, we came to Washington. So we had the Harvest, 21 Federal in Washington. And then 21 Federal closed, unfortunately, after 5 years. And then in 9 months later, we opened up Kincaid's American Brasserie on Pennsylvania Avenue. And so, and at that point, he told me, I don't care what you're going to do with your life, but you're opening this restaurant. So I said, okay. And then, long and short of it, I told him, I said, I'll give you at least 2 years. And I would have given him more, but I also knew that I was ready, that I was, you just have to move on. You had to brighten your brain with something new. So he threw me a going away party. And that day, and he was going to keep downstairs open for business and open up upstairs. There's a second floor to the restaurant. I don't know if you've ever been there, long cascading staircase, second floor, and have a party up there. We invited 200 or 300 people, so. That day, Bill Clinton calls, or the office calls, and said the president's coming in to dinner. So, well, I can't do that. This is the going away party. So he switched it, and he had left the president upstairs so that he could be in peace, and moved the party downstairs. So anyway, we knew the president was up there. Everybody was anxious. Everybody had to go through, whatever X-ray machine to get in. Nobody could bring. One guest brought a knife, couldn't bring it. All that stuff. So we all got in. I'm there. What's going on? I had no idea. They didn't tell me, and I was having dinner with friends upstairs before we came down to the party to have something to eat because I knew I'd be drinking. And so finally, the time came where he had to come downstairs. He had to, he was leaving. So I said, I just went to the Secret Service. I said, I says, it's my party. I says, how do I get him to walk me down these stairs? So he said, just go, they were all so cool, he says, just go to the top of the stairs, get at the end of the line. He's going to take pictures. And then you can, ask him to walk him down the stairs. So I did. And I said, Mr. President, when you're walking down the stairs to my party or something to that effect. And so we walked down the stairs. Well, I'm telling you, this was me. Everybody down there loves, when you attest to that. And arm in arm with Bill Clinton and with Hillary right behind us. It was like they raised the roof. The noise level was so amazing. It was me and the President of the United States, just goofy me, because I am, and him. And, I was out of my mind, and just the attention was too much to handle. But I was arm in arm with the President of the United States. And we all sat there, and he went and he shook everybody's hand, like in that front row. It was just like the Beatles had come down the stage,
I can imagine.
So it was really, really cool. So that was a great night. And for all my friends who came and whatever, it was just awesome. And then the other is, I was at 1789 after that. It was my first graduation. And Diana Ross had been lurking around. Now I know every word to every song Diana Ross ever sang. So I'm there. We're on the lookout for Diana. Her daughter was graduating, so we're all, this was, whatever this was, 80, 85, 95, 96. So we're all looking around. Every time we spotted her, there was a Diana sighting, we're all there. So anyway, graduation day comes in. What does she order? She ordered steak tartare. And I'm like, oh no. I says, make sure that I see her. That's all you have to do, telling the managers. But it was my first graduation. I'm expediting, and it's just hell. It's big families. It's all day. It's awful. And anyway, manager comes. I'm in this tight little space. I'm expediting right here. The dish machine is right here, and here we are in this little place, and the window's right here, and the food's coming up. The manager comes and taps me on the shoulder, and he says, "Chef, there's somebody here to see you." And I turn around, and Diana Ross is like 4 feet away from me in my goofy little kitchen. And I had all planned, oh, Diana, I know every word to every song you ever sung, blah, 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 I had all my whatever, just my gushing, honoring her. And she just stopped, and she just started. And she says, today is one of the most amazing days of my life. She says, my daughter is graduating from Georgetown University. Here's this girl from Detroit. And I was smart enough, thank the good Lord, to just be silent, And I just stared at it the whole time. Everything stopped. We could not afford for everything to stop. The line cooks were all like, chef. You know what I mean? Everybody, we just stopped. Diana Ross was in the kitchen.
Yeah.
We stopped cooking. They didn't have my attention. I was turning around talking to her.
Yeah.
And I was 2 feet away from her, and then she was done. I didn't say boo. All I said to her was, Diana, can I kiss you? And she says, yes, you can. Can I kiss you? And she said, yes, you can. I gave her a big kiss on the cheek, and that made my day. So that was one of my, we booked, like you said, many celebrities in the day and all of that. And I just will remember that moment forever. It made the world to me, so.
Sounds like
But that's
amazing
2
time.
of many, but there are others, other ugly ones, lots of things, but that's life in the fast lane.
Well, what happens in the kitchen stays in the kitchen, right?
That's right, sometimes.
Well, thank you so much for being my first interview. It was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing everything you do for everybody.
Well, thank you for everything you do for Ris. It's a pleasure to network with you.
Thank you. Guys, I hope if you have an opportunity, if you're ever in Washington, D.C., go to Ris, D.C. That's 2275 L Street. The food is amazing, and the chef is even better. And if you guys want to help out at the website, go to www.metropolitanglobal.com and join the party. Or if you want to just help, you can go to dccentralkitchen.org and help them out. They also are very worthy of your time and attention. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time.